Hey everybody. So I saw the question on Piazza about these crazy graphs, how to interpret them, what we need to do to really understand them. And really in economics, graphs are just there so we can look at a visual representation of data. It makes our life a lot easier, believe it or not, than looking through a lot of, columns in a nasty spreadsheet or something like that. We can just grasp the concept pretty quickly. So let me walk through the variation of the example on the graph of interest rates and savings and investment. So right here, I've reconstructed this for you. And the initial part here is savings. So savings equals investment. Without people saving money, there is no money that people can use to invest in other things. We've seen that in the chapter. So here in this graph, just like the very beginning of supply and demand, but instead of supply and demand, we're really talking, instead of the product, we're talking about interest rate. The interest rate can go up and down. So on this graph on the y-axis right here, we start with a low interest rate and we go up to a higher interest rate. So 15%, something crazy. Then down here on the x-axis, we have savings and investment in billions of dollars. And this is the actual example from 2007 before the 2008 financial crisis, which is 100% applicable to today with what's going on with COVID and how everything is grinding to a halt, or has ground to a halt. Maybe it's ungrinding a little bit. I don't know. The numbers are still ugly, regardless. So we know the numbers look like this on the supply of investment dollars. They kind of go up like this. The reason for this, of course, is that if you have a higher interest rate, people will supply more money to people who want to borrow it. So if I have $1 million, like lunch money, maybe $2 million, so I'm going to splurge and get 2 burgers. But I have $1 million, and I want to loan that to somebody. I'll take my million, but if I know that interest rates are going to go up and I can get 10% return on my money, I'll give you more than if I'm getting 1% of my money. I won't loan you as much. So that's why the supply of money goes up like this. Now, the demand in 2007 sort of looked like this. I'm not playing with real numbers yet. The demand was down here. So this was more over here if the interest rate is lower, just like our normal supply and demand. I have more money that I am demanding the use of over here if the interest rate is low, but I don't demand as much if the interest rate is high, and that's because I need to borrow money to start a business, to expand a business, to do other things, and I don't really want to pay 15% interest. But if the interest is down to 1%, I'll borrow a lot. That's why these things are kind of cohabitate a little bit. But now we know right here in this intersection, supply and demand, this is equilibrium, and this is our equilibrium number 1. So things get maybe a little rough, but it's very clean to understand. Right here in the text, this is R1, which is interest rate number 1, because we're going to have interest rate number 2 in a second. And let's say it's 4%, and I'm making up a number because I'm too lazy to look it up. So let's say 4%. It doesn't matter. That's why we use some algebraic notation. So R1 is at this rate. That means the equilibrium point, the point where these two things cross, these lightsabers here, right here, this is L1 or loan investment I1, I'm sorry, not L, I1 investment rate number 1. So let's just say that there is, I think the real number, and I'm looking in the text right now, is around $2 trillion. So it's in billions of dollars in the textbook, so it says 2, 2 something. So it's $2 trillion of money available for loan for investments. Okay, this is rate 1, 4% or so, my made up number. This is the equilibrium point. All right, but demand starts moving, starts shifting. And remember, supply and demand, the numbers on the graph is when we see the points change, but the shift is different. So what I'm going to show you is the shift, and right here on this line, this is now going to be the new demand, and all I'm going to do is move it over to the left. So I'm holding my arrow key down on the keyboard, and dramatically, need some music, there it goes. So I'm shifting to the left. I'm not changing the angle of the line. All I'm doing is moving to the left. That's it. Now, it looks like in the textbook, of course, that the top, see the very top of the blue line here that I'm almost going to run into the graph? Okay, this line, it looks like that this is kind of short. It looks like it's gone down a little bit. That makes sense because these lines kind of can go infinitely. So I can shorten this line slightly, or I can extend this line, but the logic is still the same. So here I've just moved the line over to the left. That's all. Since we've had this decrease in demand and the line is shifting over, I've shifted it over, then this looks like the demand of 2008. And that's a label down there at the bottom. This is demand of 2008, which means our equilibrium point is now here, right here. And this means the interest rate, R2, is lower than 4%. Looks like maybe 3.5%. We've lost 0.5%. But if we follow this down here, suddenly we see that our investment dollars have declined. Remember, we start at 0 and we grow upward. So where we were a second ago, which I said was about $2 trillion, in 2008, right out of the textbook, which I'm looking at, investment dollars ended up being $1.4 trillion from 2.2. Dramatic decrease. I'm not exactly showing that width in this crummy graph that I've made, but I think you get the point that as this line just moves over, the demand just shifts because of consumer confidence. In this case, people got nervous. And they said, I'm not spending any money. They're not going to spend any money, which means the supply, we can look at it from a supply problem. I'm not going to spend any money. The supply tightens up, which is what happened. Credit disappeared. But then the demand also moved in. I don't want to do two lines to be confusing. I just want to do one, which is demand. So the demand goes down because people stopped demanding certain things because there was no business to support it. You don't want to borrow a lot of money in a period of turmoil because you're thinking, I'm not going to have any customers because people are losing their jobs. So it's kind of a crazy time to start a thing because confidence is so low. So here we are, demand moves over, it shifts. We've seen this shift happen in supply and demand, right? So when you make more money, I always get in trouble for this example, but I'm still going to use it. You're in college, you're eating that boxed macaroni and cheese, but then you graduate, you make a little more money, then you make a little more money, then you make a lot more money, and you're not really satisfied with the boxed macaroni and cheese. You want to get some fettuccine Alfredo instead. You want to go to a nice restaurant. That means your curve, your demand curve shifts to the right because you're willing to spend more money. But it could be that you lose your job and you're back to boxed macaroni and cheese and your demand curve shifts to the left and you don't want to spend as much. And that's what this shows as well. Please don't call the help desk. Don't call and say, hey, boxed macaroni and cheese is okay. Just an example. Any example, everyone gives me grief about it. I could say, hey, you're driving a 1978 Soviet Union Comrade car, but you make more money and soon you're going to buy a Tesla, right? Your demand shifts. Still, I get emails. Hey, I like my Comrade car. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with communism in cars? Oh, well, so many problems wrong with it. But the point is, it still shifts, and your taste shift, and it's exactly what's happening here, except it's not taste. It's consumer kind of how you're feeling about the environment, what you want to spend money on, what you want to borrow. So just to reiterate, I want to make sure that I'm kind of doing this the right way. This demand line of 2007 shifted over. The 2008 financial crisis, same thing happening today. Actually, I should have modeled this for today. Our equilibrium point, R1, then I1 right here changes to R2. The interest rate lowers, and then the investment of dollars lowers here too, the supply line as well. Because of course, that just follows our angle going up. So that's how that looks. Now, it gets into a much bigger conversation about the spiral of death that happens. Loss of confidence, this slips and slips and slips. And we can actually graph this looking at the Depression, for example, or even today, what's going on with Corona or COVID. But you hit a point of equilibrium over time that the market balances out. And from there, you can grow after that. That doesn't mean that people haven't lost their jobs. It just means the equilibrium point is hit where the price, the supply and demand have equalized. But yeah, people lost their jobs. It's turmoil, but still there is a point where that demand equalizes. So that's kind of how that works. And I hope that I've explained that with a little bit more clarity, and hope I've helped you understand these dynamics of the graphs. Just go step by step. That's all. And that's why I wanted to show you the movement directly shifting. The movement doesn't shift and go in a wonky way. It just shifts over. And that shift kind of looks like it slides down the supply line, but that's an illusion. It doesn't slide anywhere. It just, the equilibrium point is in a different location. The line is still the same, just goes right over. But the equilibrium point does slide slightly, but the line does not. Okay. Happy Father's Day.